Recording in progress.
Get your stickers from the membership table with Mary and Tom. And actually, they won't be reinforcing the parking regulations till January 20th. But we were told we've got till the end of January. Don't worry about it. So if you don't have the card in your dashboard right now, don't worry about it. Like, get your stickers and we'll work through the month on that. I just want to acknowledge Bob Balfi. Bob, thank you for being so dedicated with your newspapers. You always bring the paper and the Coast News. Thank you so much. He hauls those in. And he's always giving us suggestions for topics. He's so dedicated. Bob, I want to thank you ever so much for all your help. He's right there. And your application forms that you put in for your membership, if there are any changes, would you see the membership committee at the back table, please? If you have a new phone number or a new address or any other changes on that form, maybe your emergency contact, something like that, be sure to keep it up to date. That's very important to us. And also the birthday celebrations. Any January birthdays this month? Raise your hand. Let's see. Happy birthday, folks. Yes. And Melanie made sure we have birthday cupcakes up there for you, so it will enjoy. Congratulations. And as far as refreshments, we are going to send the sign-up sheet around. Please keep it going. Don't hold on to it. And we do appreciate your donations for refreshments. So that will be circulating in this room today. So we have for the month of January, but we need February forthcoming as well. And our donation jar for the students is located at this table. So if you have any donations, we have envelopes at the front table, the greeters table. Put your donations in here. We'll take cash, we'll take checks, but no stamps. Yes. No change. Checks and bills. Yes, cash. Okay, all right. And no pennies. No pennies. A monthly bill pay. Thank you very much for that suggestion. Also, we do collect used batteries. So if you have any, bring them up to the table, leave them here, and we get them, or you can check at the receptionist desk outside. That goes to the college. They are collecting them. So we're doing that on their behalf. Used batteries, bring them in, and we'll put them to work. They get discounts for supplies, etc. So that helps them. Also, Mary Magra will introduce our first speaker.
Good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Grant Barrett. Grant is a lexicographer, linguist, and co-host of the nationwide public radio show, Away with Words. He specializes in slang and new words and is author of the best-selling Perfect English Grammar. He lives in San Diego with his wife, an editor, and they have a parents to a college freshman. Please give a warm life welcome to Grant.
Thank you, Mary and Ria. Thank you for everyone who made this happen today. Can you hear me okay? Okay, good, because I work in radio. I better get this right. I appreciate coming out here. It's been a long time. I think it's 15 years or something since I spoke to a group like this here, or similar, something like that, right? Yeah, 15 years. So anyway, yeah, I am the co-host of public radio show Away with Words, which is heard nationwide, coast to coast, and broadcast here out of San Diego. We started the show started in 1998, and Martha and I became co-hosts in 2006 when we were on just 12 stations in 4 states. But now we're on in 45 states, 330 stations, so we have grown the show quite a bit. So San Diego is heard out there on public radio stations across the country. I'm a lexicographer. A lexicographer is somebody who compiles and edits dictionaries. So when I was an active lexicographer, I specialized in slang and new words, and I still do that, and you'll see a bunch of that today. I most recently was the head of lexicography for dictionary.com, but I don't do that anymore. And Away with Words is how I spend my time. Let me just make sure this remote works. Oh, okay. There we go. Whoa, hello. That's weird. Oh wait, it's got a sweet spot. I found it. I'm not internationally known, but I'm known to rock the microphone. Okay. So there we are. That's us, the radio show, also heard around the world by podcast. Yeah, so nice, right? And we're heard here in San Diego on KP. Let's hear it for KPBS. Public radio keeps you informed. One I wanted to talk about today to start with are the words of the year. Right now in New Orleans, the Linguistic Society of America and the American Dialect Society are meeting. I could not be there this year, but they are voting on the words of the year as of, I believe, 6:30 Central Time. So not long from now. And I just wanted to share some of the words of the year that were voted in by dictionaries and publishers and other organizations, and then talk about some of the candidates. This is, yes, 6-7. We're going to talk about 6-7. She knows. This young woman over here has got it. She's plugged into the slang. So the words of the year 2025, 6-7. There we go. It was voted in by dictionary.com. This is a strange, I don't have my notes with this setup, but it's a strange term that came out of a hip hop song and then became connected to a basketball player. And do the gesture for us. Show us what they do when they say 6-7. It's kind of like half a one, six of the, half a dozen of one, six of the other. Comme ci, comme ça, exactly. And so it's an interjection or just a remark you make just to insert nonsense into a conversation. Sometimes it expresses maybe, maybe not, that sort of thing. Am I talking too fast? Okay. She said yes. I will talk slower. One of the other words of the year was slop, AI slop, or slop as a suffix, and this is digital content of low quality, or actually any quality, made by artificial intelligence like ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude or some of the other systems. And it's kind of this pushback to people saying, look, I want to be the artist. I don't my computer I want technology to do my laundry and my dishes, not write my books and make my pictures, and until we could get until bots come into my house and do my laundry, I just, I'm not going to be happy. But slop, so it's kind of a pejorative term to refer to content created by AI. Not everyone's happy with it. Rage bait was voted in by Oxford University Press. And this is when a publisher in particular will post something that they know is going to make people angry or get a lot of divisive comments. Is Madonna the best rock star ever? Well, that's rage bait, frankly, right? Because she's not a rock star, and there are many that are better. But so rage bait is just you're just encouraging people to get enraged so that they will come to your site and bicker on your site, and you can get the page views and the ad views, and therefore make money. Parasocial is if you have a parasocial relationship, you have this feeling that you have a personal connection to somebody famous when you really don't. Because you see them on television or in movies or listen to their podcast or radio shows, and you think that you know them, and you think that they're a pal of yours, but it's really a one-way relationship. That's called a parasocial relationship. Yeah, so this was Cambridge University Press's word of the year. And then vibe coding goes back to AI. This is using, the programmer will use AI systems to write software. And vibe coding is kind of letting the computer do most of the work, and you just kind of toss your ideas at it. And frankly, that's about the only thing the AI has shown to be really, really good at, is doing code. Unfortunately, because that might mean a lot of people out of work. And then this was a Canadian national poll. Maple wash is their word of the year. And what this is, so with the, I'm not going to talk about politics today, but indirectly, the United States is intense new relationship with Canada meant that a lot of Canadian companies were making it clear to Canadians that their products were indeed made in Canada. But sometimes they fudged it. Sometimes they lied, and that's maple washing. So you make a product that's actually not from Canada seem like it's from Canada. If we were to talk about politics today, I would have another whole set of slides, and we would probably do a lot of rage baiting. So I'm not going to do that today. No rage baiting for me. And here are some of the ones that weren't voted as word of the year by any organization, but were strong contenders. Aura farming. This is when you try to look really cool. You know, you got the drip, which is the nice clothing. You got the smooth lines when you're hitting on somebody. You watch the right shows. You can drive the right car. Aura farming. And the broligarchy. So this is bro, short for brother, plus oligarchy. This is the world of male-dominated, wealthy, high-tech investors and leaders. Some of them are billionaires. Some of them are wannabe billionaires. Yeah. Broligarchy. Task masking. We've all done this. This is pretending to work at work. False impression of being productive. A clanker. This goes back to AI also. You can see the trend here. AI has generated a lot of new language. A clanker is a bot or automated machine or software that tries to do something that humans ordinarily do and probably doesn't do it as well. And so it's another like gentle pejorative against AI systems trying to replace humans, to call it a clanker. And this comes actually out of the Star Wars world, where a certain model of droid was called a clanker. To glaze someone is to enthuse or excessively praise them. You're like, why are you glazing Elon Musk? He's bad for society. Glazing, right? I'm sorry, I dropped an opinion there. The Gen Z stare. I think this one's kind of pejorative too, and I don't know that it's fair, but it is out there. And this is this blank or blank look you get from younger folks, particularly in retail or workplace settings, where they just don't comprehend, but they're not interested enough to even ask you to explain. They just give you the look. But, I think that's every generation. It's not fair to pick on the Gen Z. We've all been there. Some of you I know had that face when you were that age. And trad wife is short for traditional wife. So this is kind of a conservative subculture that idealizes traditional feminine roles. This non-existent but 1950s idea that the woman stays home, takes care of the kids, doesn't have a career, doesn't get an advanced degree or anything like that, or the aesthetic of that. So like long flowy flowered gowns or skirts or dresses or what have you. And then elbows up is another Canadianism. So when the Canadians felt a little attacked by the United States on the diplomatic and political front, this became a hashtag and kind of a saying. Mike Myers, the Canadian comedian, used it on SNL. Elbows up means to like go get them. Basically, it's a note of encouragement. Go get them. But it comes from hockey, where when you get ready to get in a fight, you put your elbows up so you can knock all the hockey players about. And I see a lot of really nice face cards in this room. Your face card is the quality of your facial attractiveness. So if somebody has a killer face card, it means they are very good looking. I see she's taking notes. She's writing her Valentine's cards already. Dearest sweetie, you have the face card of all face cards. Face card never declined, you might say. Means that they get what they want because they're very attractive. And that's also, I don't have a slide for it, but that's known as pretty privilege. When you're attractive and the world is just a little bit smoother for you because you're so good looking. And I have that problem all the time. And then a valid crash out is a justified mental breakdown. Like, yeah, he had a valid crash out. It's okay. Don't worry about him. He'll be better. And then to perform flawlessly is to eat, or even better, to eat and leave no crumbs. Man, he really ate with that new album. That was a fantastic album. Eat. Who knows? Slang is inexplicable sometimes. But I love it. I think it's a really good one. And so this is my slide that says, any questions? Yes. Wait, let's get you a microphone. All right, here. Don't monopolize it. I got to go over here so I'm on camera and the Zoom people aren't seeing blanks.
Okay, I know I am behind the times, but what is Riz? I hear that a lot, Riz.
What is Riz? Riz is supposedly short for charisma, and it's your style or your swag, your swagger, your ability to walk into a room and have all eyes turned to you. So who's an actor that you just seems to have that for you? George Clooney has got Riz, unquestionably. It's often used for men, but also women too. Okay, George Clooney, yeah. And Amal Clooney has Riz as well. His wife. She's a high-powered, incredible, beautiful lawyer. So, all right. So this other category of slides here is found words. So these aren't necessarily new, although some of them will probably be new to you. But I just ran across them and thought they were worth sharing. I do want to say, now that we have a microphone in circulation, if you have any comments or just something to say, shout it out. Raise your hand, ask for the microphone, and we'll just talk about it, because it doesn't have to be, there's a term for somebody just standing up here. It's called park and bark. It comes from opera, where some opera singers are really good singers, but not good actors. Or a sage on a stage, where you're just supposed to listen to the guy stand up here with this blah, blah, blah. All right. So that microphone, the woman in the red shirt has it, or did you get it? Oh, it's over here now. We'll circulate that. Don't talk until you have it. Well, shout it out and I'll try to repeat your words. All right, so did you know that there's a term for this? This is called the keeper on your belt. This stops the belt from flapping around. I just thought you should know. This right here, this strap. You can see it on the picture. All right, and you probably all know this. The twisted wire enclosure that holds the cork in the bottle, the mucilate or mucilate. How about that? There's a word for it. Comes from French, obviously. This is my kitty cat Pearl. Right? She has not grown into those ears yet, not completely. Well, this is when she was a little bitty. She was like just a few months old, but now she's 5. She's still 100% rascal cat. She's a typical calico, lots of trouble. But anyway, one of the things we call her is, her name is Pearl, so she has a lot of nicknames. You know how it is with your cats and your dogs, right? You give them tons of nicknames. So she's Pearl, or Pearly Whirly, or Pearly Girly, but also Pearly Everlasting, because Pearl Everlasting is a type of flower that grows here in California, and there's also a California version of it. You can't quite see it because of the subtitles, the captioning, but the last part of that, Margaretacea, is a Latin word that means pearl. And so if your name is Margaret, your name comes from a word meaning pearl. Any Marges or Margarets or Peggies here? There we go, yeah. And so your name means pearl, which I think is nice. And margarine also, because it's kind of pearlescent. The pearlescent look of it also comes from the word meaning pearl. And then the Irish sometimes used to call it Maggie Ann, which is even further away, but still about pearly, being pearl. Anyway, just an excuse to show you my cat, but also to talk a little bit about Margaret and pearls. Anybody here from the South use this term for the wishbone? Do you know this term, pulley bone? So on a bird, when got the wishbone, that Y-shaped piece that you break in half, and the custom is to make a wish. There are other names for it in Spanish. If we have Spanish speakers here, anybody want to shout them out? A what? Well, but we're looking for the slangy or dialect ones. Yeah, so they're often words related to fork. So because it looks like a 2-pronged fork. Yeah. I had more to say on that, but I can't see in my notes with this set up, so it's fine. Here's a word. I love that it's long, and we're still making really long words in English. Reducitarianism, the practice of eating just a little less meat. And then just a fewer animal products, like not committing yourself 100% because that's hard in this world. And maybe there aren't people in your household who will be cooperative, but doing what you can just to kind of take a little bit off of the difficulties of the problems that are associated with eating meat. And beige diet, toddlers in your life, anybody here, your grandkids, they eat a beige diet, right? It's brown fried things like French fries and breads and pastas and dinosaur shaped fried things and brown. It's all beige. It's all brown. A beige diet. Procrastinating. Yeah, you got it immediately, right? This is when you bake when you should be doing something else. Because the house smells good and you get your hands a little dirty, and at the end there's something enjoyable to eat. These are my pretzels, by the way. They turned out pretty well. I had a problem figuring out. I ended up using baking soda, I think, but they use it for the. Sometimes you can use a lye or something similar. But yeah, when you do the boiling in the baking soda water, that's how you get that texture and taste. Sad fishing on social. You do this. You go to Facebook. You post a "woe is me" comment. Oh, I can't believe what happened, and then you don't explain. That's sad fishing. You're just going there to express your worries and just leaving everybody hanging with your vague booking. Sad fishing. And to go bare. This is not an exciting one, but to go bare doesn't mean to run around naked. In this case, it means to go without insurance, which unfortunately is what too many people have to do these days. And angry pixies. This is a slangy term for electricity, especially when it's passing through you. The angry pixies get you. And then I love a mixed metaphor, like what's the one about rocket surgery, right? It ain't rocket surgery. Well, it ain't brain surgery, or it ain't rocket science. But this one, enough rope to shoot yourself in the foot. It's letting someone foul up the situation. And big brain time is a little bit of slang. It actually comes from this image to the right. You can't quite see it here because of the subtitles, but there's a yesent on there. That N''T has, in a slangy way, been borrowed to make negatives out of things. So anything can have N''T, even when it's not appropriate, added to it to make it a negative. So yesent is no. Just because slang doesn't have to make a lot of sense. I mean, it does make sense in the end, but you can kind of mess with the rules a little bit. And to go to hell with gasoline shorts on is to do something bad. Pete Rose, when he was kicked out of baseball, said that he would wear a gasoline suit in hell if it got him back into baseball. That's how much he loved the sport. And a slaphead is a bald person. Because when you walk by him, you want to do that, right? And cookie pouch. This is my cookie pouch, but cats have that little dangly flap. That's the primordial pouch. It's not because they're fat. It's because primordial means they're from the beginning. So it's just part of their physique. They're existing from the beginning. So when we talk about primordial ooze that all life came from, it was there at the beginning. And SpongeBob case, when you want to be sarcastic on the internet. So we have this problem, which is the spoken language is the real language, and the print or written language is this pale imitation of language. Believe it or not, the written language is the imposter. And so how do you express things like sarcasm in print? Well, you have to do something called paralinguistic restitution. Paralinguistic restitution. This is where you add back into the text things that are missing. That you can easily do when speaking aloud. And so in this case, we intermix our capital letters to express sarcasm. Like in this social media message, the boyfriend says, "I don't even know her like that." And the woman responds, "I don't even know her like that." And you can just kind of pick up the sarcasm from the way the capitals are interspersed, right? This is kind of, we do add new terms in the scientific fields. Pyrocumulonimbus. This is a huge thunderstorm cloud that comes from a fire, or sometimes from a volcano. Also called cumulonimbus flammagenitis, and with that abbreviation at the bottom, CBFG. We unfortunately need terms like this because of our fires, as we all know, living here in Southern California, as we do. That's what they look like. This is scary stuff. I showed this slide recently in other parts of the country, and they'd never seen it because they don't have these fires like we have. And all of these changes that are happening in the environment invoke what are called psychoturbatic states. So this is just the kind of uncertainty and the doubt and the just kind of these bad feelings that you get with climate going awry. And so there's all these other terms that I don't want to explain them all, but they've been coined based on this idea that what's happening in the climate affects us whether we believe it or not. Pyrocene is probably the most interesting one on the list here to me. Pyrocene is just the era of fire. And the Anthropocene is the man's era on this planet. So the Pyrocene is a product of the Anthropocene. But there are some positive things coming out of people who study the climate change. One is ecophonesis. It's this practical wisdom that we get, and often it comes from the communities and people who have lived here in this land the longest, so the native communities. And we can also seek out climate joy. This is a word borrowed from Swedish. It's this idea that you can deliberately cultivate joy in the environment, and that way spread a positivity that sometimes can counteract the psychoturbatic states. And this is also known as euteria, which is this positive feeling of being a part of this earth and not separate from it, which unfortunately we often, as an intellectual species, we often think of ourselves as above and beyond everything else that happens on this planet, but we are not. And the EU prefix, it means good. And it's the same prefix you see in euphoria. So the euphoria originally was about enduring illness well, to carry it well. And those are my slides. And now it's time for the Q&A. I'm sorry I tore through those so fast. I can't even believe it. All right, thank you. Got a question over here. Yes, sir.
My Rolodex in my mind doesn't come up with a name, but there was a gentleman at UCLA years ago that went to Mexico to look at all the shamans and so on. But he said in one of his books, he said, if you name it, it exists. And I've always thought about that a lot in my just talking with anything that I do. Yeah. And you're saying it up here. If you name it, it'll exist.
Well, it makes it easier for the mind to fasten on it. I mean, it's obviously there whether or not you name it, right? It's the whole, if a tree in the forest falls and nobody's there to hear it, does it actually happen?
Yeah.
So, but once humans can grasp an idea mentally, even in a shorthand, then they can begin to see it as a situation to be dealt with.
Yeah, he described putting a jar on the table, and he said, "Don't put that jar on the table because now I have to name it."
Yeah, well, an example that I like to use is if you want to really freak somebody out, put their dish towels in the bathroom and their hand towels in the kitchen. And there's no reason. I mean, they're a little fabrics, a little different. The bath towels are a little heavier and a little nicer, and the dish towels are, a little thinner and a little more everyday purpose. But they can do the same job. But people have these mental categories for these types of small towels, and they get really uncomfortable when you mix them up. But there's many, many things that we do this in our life. Other questions here?
Can you tell me what a Substack is? And the other thing I wanted to ask about was there's a word, I think it's pronounced cosplay. And I think it has to do with dressing up like a cowboy if you're in Texas, but I don't know. But so Substack, I'd like to know.
So how long have you been in Southern California? You're originally from the East Coast?
10 years.
East Coast, New York?
Yeah, New York, yeah.
What part of New York?
Queens.
Okay, I used to live in Queens. Where in Queens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're in Queens.
Richmond Hill.
Okay, yeah, sure, a little far out there.
Woodhaven Boulevard.
Do you still stand online like other people from New York, or do you stand in line now like Californians do?
In line, I would say.
Okay, yeah. In New York and New Jersey often say I'm standing online instead of in line. So a Substack is it's a brand, it's a proper noun, a brand name of a kind of website where people can ask questions of each other. And AI has kind of destroyed Substack because AI borrowed all of its information, is now regurgitating, and doesn't need Substack anymore, and all of its years of questions and answers. The cosplay is short for costume play. Yeah, you had that right. It's just the idea. We do this San Diego Comic-Con, right? What are they doing down there when they dress up like a superhero or something from anime? They're doing just play acting that they are that character. And it's fun for humans to do. Humans throughout all of recorded history, I guess all history is recorded, but throughout all of history, humans have often dressed up as animals or gods or other things. And cosplay is just a new iteration of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just saw a new term. You talked a lot about AI.
Hold it up to your mouth. Hold it up to your mouth.
Okay. I just read a new term yesterday in medical news. You talked a lot about AI words, and psychiatrists are now starting to talk about AI chat psychosis.
Yes, AI chat psychosis.
Yes,
yeah,
and
I've
they're
seen that as well.
starting to see a lot of more people in emergency rooms, and one of the features is not only psychotic break, but people who use AI chat heavily start believing this is a real person or even that it's God.
Yeah, that's happened. Yeah, people believe that it's a real person because it sounds so reasonable. And you can do that. And you can even trick yourself by telling AI to only respond a certain way, which some people have done. It's AI chat psychosis. I don't know if it's one of those things that exists a lot, but it's definitely out there. Yeah. I'm gathering that this was your field, psychiatry, perhaps?
No, but
medical. Who here, by the way, has been an educator or a librarian? Raise your hand. Thank you so much. Let's hear it for the educators and librarians.
Yay.
I know that we all have interesting careers. Perhaps they're still doing them. But Martha and I, my co-host of the radio show, often feel that the educators and librarians are right there in the coalface, as they say, right there where the hard work is being done of making new generations of actively engaged thinking individuals who are going to bring us to a better place. So other questions? I'll take you, sir, in the hat.
I read a lot of books, and they say that when you read in the English language, does it kind of come from
Hold it up to your mouth.
Oh, and when you read in English, is there kind of caricatures that comes with each letter, and then in Egypt they have hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
And they're little pictures. So I'm wondering if that came from English, came from little characters. Or?
It's complicated. I think you're really talking about the script more than you're talking about the language. And it is true that most of the European languages have an alphabet that originally, through long histories and many roads, started with the Phoenicians or even older. And some of them, like the A, looked like an ox, for example. But it was a stand-in for a sound more than it was a stand-in for the character. But we do have languages like Mayan, where it is both. Sometimes it's phonetic and sometimes it's representative. And so it's complicated. In English, we don't really do that. We might have a rebus where the letter B and an image of a bee as an insect can stand for each other, can trade places, but we don't really do that. So it's complicated. But all of the European scripts go back to the Phoenician traders and earlier than that still. All of them, including Cyrillic and Greek and Etruscan, all of them go back ultimately to this. And now that script has traveled the world, and languages like Vietnamese are written in a form of it. So it still keeps going. Yes, over here.
Yeah, I have 2 questions online. Is it possible to get a list of these words emailed to us?
I will make the slides available if you'd like.
Okay. And the other is, I just finished reading Fatcist Unabridged, in which he often refers to you. Would you please give your thoughts on the present and future of lexicography?
How much time do we have? So Stefan Fatsis wrote a new book called Unabridged, which is spectacular, and it's about the state of the dictionary business, which more or less for the last 60 years plus has been in decline. companies keep closing, they keep making fewer dictionaries, they keep paper dictionaries are already in jeopardy. And so I was at dictionary.com at the time he was writing this book, and I'm a lexicographer again, somebody who makes some dictionaries and have been for a couple of decades. And so I was one of the people he interviewed, and because I tend to talk freely off the cuff and say unwise things, I was very quotable. But yeah, so the state of dictionaries is dismal. There is one company left in the United States that makes regular domestic dictionaries, and that's Merriam-Webster. One. Now, I say note all those qualifiers, regular domestic dictionaries, because you do have people making specialty dictionaries for native languages. You have people making, for example, professional dictionaries like for chemistry or for engineering and so forth. But for the everyday dictionary that you might use it at home or in school, there's one company left in the United States when there used to be many. Yes. Was that all the questions?
No. Back here.
No, I'm sorry. What was all the questions from chat? Okay, yes, in the back then. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the process and how they get the words that they're going to consider if they're voted in by people, and then how often does the Webster's Dictionary update and put in all these new words?
So I'll answer both. So you're talking about the Words of the Year vote. So the American Dialect Society's vote is later today, and it's kind of, I make it sound formal and august. It's really just a bunch of goofing off by people kind of letting off some steam in their field. So a bunch of linguists who are kind of having fun. So it's not like everything that they nominate or everything that gets voted in is somehow going to magically become, ta-da, a new word. So it could have anywhere from 20 to 100 candidates, and there'll be some argument on the floor. It's usually a lot of fun. If you go to the American Dialect Society website at americandialect.org, you'll find some videos of past votes, and you'll actually see all of the nominations that are going to be voted on tonight. Your other question was?
The dictionary.
Oh yeah, so every dictionary has their own process, but generally Merriam-Webster adds new words on a quarterly basis. And so since they have a limited people power and limited time and money, they don't add everything that they find, but they add the ones that they believe are going to be looked up the most, or that seem to have the most relevance and currency. And they can tell by looking at their web traffic, for example. So they'll add stuff. For example, a lot of these AI terms are going to show up in there because AI has shown that it has some lasting power over the last 5 plus years.
My question is, how do people who are in your position or get to decide on the words, what is their background that they're so knowledgeable about all the different words and where they come from?
So I think I'm representative of this kind of word nerdery in one way, in that there's no one story. And so, for example, I got into the word world because I wanted to be a better writer, and I joined the email list of the American Dialect Society, and over time I became the guy that runs its website and going to the conferences and reading the books by its members, who just turned out to be the sociolinguists of note in the United States and the lexicographers of note in the United States. And so I kind of sat at the feet of bright minds and kind of read their material and listened to them and kind of learned from them, and then became a lexicographer because of that experience. That is, somebody who makes dictionaries at Oxford University Press, and through that then joined this radio show. But you'll often have very similar stories from other lexicographers. They'll be like, I was an English teacher and I just happened to put out a book that, really turned me on to the idea of lexicography, and then I became one when a job appeared. Or somebody will say, I studied the Celtic languages and that got me interested in etymology, and it turned out there's a position for etymologists and I applied and I got it. So a lot of times you can get a degree in lexicography, but a lot of times lexicographers don't have them because it's such a weird mishmash of skills, and it requires above all, patience with detail and the willingness to do something repetitive over tremendous periods of time, sometimes years, just to work on an entry that's going to take you every single day for months. Not a lot of people are going to be willing to do that. So you have to have a particular kind of perverse enjoyment in specifics. Yes, miss.
I was wondering if in England the Oxford English Dictionary is the only publisher, and internationally, what is the state of dictionary?
Yeah, in the UK, there's Cambridge University Press and Collins, and I think Chambers may still be an active going concern. And they all have some presence in the US market, but the amount of attention. So, for example, Oxford University Press closed its American lexicography division, you know? So they don't even have an American office anymore, as far as I understand it. So it's a little healthier in the UK, but a lot of the business that they do isn't to native speakers, it's to second language learners. And that's when I talked about the caveats of what I was saying about just one publisher left, there is still room for dictionaries for people who don't speak English as a first language but would like to learn it. And so that's someplace that we do see some strength. But those dictionaries tend to be overly simplistic for native speakers and don't necessarily do the full job. Does that answer your question enough? Oh, worldwide, it's similar, not quite as severe. Often the governments will support dictionary efforts, like the Académie Française in France supports and in Spain, the Diccionario Real Español, DRAE, also gets government support, so they don't have to depend so much on sales. So it's the ones who are strictly commercial that seem to be in decline, because it turns out people, when they want a dictionary definition, they don't go to paper anymore. They go online, and they're willing to accept good enough if perfect isn't available. So people will just accept whatever they find and just kind of say, oh, done. And they don't, most people, we're talking 99.99%, don't require the specific expertise that a lexicographer can deliver. It's unfortunate, but that's where we stand. Who else? Yes, sir.
I believe there was it was called Random House New American Dictionary.
Yeah, the Random House Unabridged Dictionary, yeah.
And I haven't seen that. I actually was in Barnes & Noble and passing by the dictionaries, and I didn't notice it there. But that was always my favorite because it agreed with my definitions.
Yeah, so the Random House Dictionary is an interesting story. So they stopped publishing new editions in the 90s. So if you do see new editions, they're simply licensed. They have probably no new information added. So what I usually tell people is if the word internet isn't in there, don't buy it, because it means it's really old. But one interesting story about, so I worked at dictionary.com, which licensed the Random House Unabridged Dictionary. And the Random House Unabridged Dictionary was a version of the New Century Dictionary, which was a version of the Century Dictionary, which was a version of Ogilvy's Dictionary, which is British. So you can actually find entries, and other dictionaries have done the same, like the Macquarie Dictionary in Australia has done the same thing. So you can find entries in there that are over 100 years old because they have not changed from that Ogilvy Dictionary. Who's next?
I have two questions. One is, it appears to me that these new words come from a very young generation.
Mm-hmm.
Has that always been the case, and is that true?
It's so I call these kinds of new words that I shared with you today fireflies, because we're attracted because they stand out against the darkness of the whatever, the nighttime skies. But the truth is, everyone creates new words all the time. All of us. Everyone in this room does it. But usually it's just for a moment. And they do a job, like we'll add a prefix. So it's like, are you going to the party? No, but I'm going to go to the pre-party. Well, pre-party, you just made a word, right? But we don't really need to define that, because the dictionary will define pre and it'll define party, but it probably won't have an entry for pre-party. And you can do it with post-party and other things like that. Or if you want to specify that it's like the ultimate party, you're like, well, I'm not going to that party, I'm going to the party, which means I'm going to that's called, I forget what it's called, but it's a kind of reduplication. You're specifying I'm going to the one party that matters the most. I'm not going to the pre-party. I'm not going to the post-party. I'm going to the party. And we all do this. We double a word, and we make a compound that way, and we do it with anything, right? Are you going to wear this jacket? No, and I was thinking about wearing the jacket, the one that is more traditionally and specifically a jacket by like the ultimate definition of a jacket, right? So I'm sorry, I wandered far afield. So yes, they do, but young people are developing identity. and they're developing community, and they're figuring out who they are and what their place is in the world. And they do come up with a lot of this fun firefly language, the sparkly stuff, the shiny stuff that catches their eyes. But any one of you, all of you who've worked in any field, know that you had your own jargon in your fields, your own definitions, and language that people outside your field wouldn't recognize. And when your field changed, your language changed. And so we create new language in the scientific and technical and any kind of field all the time. All the time. It's just we don't notice because it's so ordinary. It's such a fundamental part of being a speaker, of knowing a language. And it happens in every language. So that's part of the reason language changes so much.
My second thought, once these words are voted on, do they then appear in a dictionary?
Sometimes the dictionaries have their own criteria. Like I said, though, the word of the year that's done by the dictionaries, often those will go into the dictionary. It's much easier now that they have a website and they're not limited by page space. But the American Dialect Society words, they will put them in their journal American Speech, and then that kind of ensconces them, at least in the historical record, so that later if somebody's searching, say, 100 years from now, they'll come across and say, oh, look at this artifact of the year 2026. Wow, what a strange time that was. Yes, miss.
You mentioned that most of us go to Google to find a definition of a word. So are there internet sites that you particularly think do a better job of providing us with information about words or definitions?
So here's what I usually say. If you're in a situation where you're just reading a book and you need a definition, just take whatever comes your way and hope that it works. If you're writing, if you're a novelist or writing a business document, try 2 dictionaries. And there's a site called onelook.com, ONELOOK, it's kind of old-fashioned looking. It looks like the internet from like 20 years ago, but it's constantly updated. And it indexes multiple dictionaries, and it can give you multiple entries at once. And it's got a really interesting thesaurus on it as well that I think is better than, it's done a really good job of programmatically making a new thesaurus. It's pretty good. And I know that sounds like faint praise, but pretty good is really good in dictionary world because there's no perfect. It just doesn't exist. It's just too much work to make it perfect. And just when you think it's perfect, it's now out of date. So yeah, but my advice to everyone writing something that's important is use at least 2 dictionaries just to make sure that you get like a good grasp. Try a UK dictionary, try an English dictionary, and see how they compare. And the other advice I usually have is write just a little bit below your level. Don't reach too hard for language that isn't truly yours. Yes.
There are 2 more questions online now from Sue. What is chapbook? When was it used? Is the name Chapman from that, or chapters, or chap, or chapskin?
That is more than I could say for sure. A chapbook is a collection usually of songs or chords for songs that you can use kind of as almost a mnemonic device or a memory device to help you perform. But the chap in chapter is the same from the capital, so it means head. So it's originally from Latin to meaning head. So I've kind of answered some of it there, but I don't know the other specifics. That's really Sue. If you want to, hi Sue. If you want to email the show and ask those questions, I'd be happy to try to take a look for you. Okay.
Okay, and from Susan, I have a question about them being used to signify flexible gender. Why would they, whoever they are, choose a plural word unless they are conjoined twins or have multiple personalities? They are not plural. And when you're done with this, another question has popped.
What was that person's name? Susan. That I'm sorry to say is a specious question. That is I know you're probably being facetious as well, but we use they as a singular throughout history and have for 400 years. Whoever left their lights on in the parking lot, will they go out and turn them off? I just use they, right? It's an unknown quantity. I didn't know whether it was he or she. Now, I realized that we in the past have used he or she at all times, and this they has only recently become put into professional style guides. But informally, and even in the writing of Jane Austen, we've seen they use this way throughout the history of English. So it's not necessarily a plural. English words often have more than one meaning in English, almost always, actually. So to obsess over this one word and insist that it must be plural is a mistake. And this new way is just simply a new iteration on an old way. So that is a really complicated topic. There is there are a couple different books on pronouns. So if you want to email the radio show, words@waywardradio.org, I can recommend them to you, and they talk at length about all the different ways that this has happened over the many centuries and why this new thing is just barely a blip in an old way of English operating. It's pretty interesting. Also, the number of pronouns that have been suggested over the centuries that just simply have not been accepted. And you had one more?
This is not a question. It's from Patricia. Very entertaining and informative. Thank you so much for arranging this presenter.
Yeah, and thank you. I would like to thank the organizers as well. I appreciate the hard work that goes into this, and everyone, your membership here makes this happen. How much time do we have left? Okay.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask, I mean, young people, we're talking about young people adding new words to the language. What about old people and taking away of words? And, you know, if you say yo-yo dieting, do young people have any idea what a yo-yo is? And,
if you say yo-yo dieting, young people know what a yo-yo is. I think they know. But old words do go in and out of fashion. It's a pretty ordinary thing. And although, like I said, everyone, including older folks, do make new words. Everyone drops things from their language because you only have so much that you can contain at one time, right? Stuff just becomes less necessary. So yeah, we do drop words, and they become these artifacts of history and these artifacts of memory, and they kind of plug us into a time or place that doesn't really exist anymore. Yeah, who has the microphone there?
I do, if I can turn it on. Okay. I have trouble with words that have reversed their meaning in my lifetime, like sanction and sanction used to mean sanctify, and now it means penalize. And virtual used to mean true, and now it means false. And how often in the English language do we typically change the meaning to an opposite, or is this a new phenomenon, or what?
No, it's always happened. Like I said, most words in English have more than one meaning, and so they can coexist because the words don't stand alone. They keep company, and we determine what they really mean by the context. That is, the other words in the passage that they come from. Sanction is the classic example of what it's called a Janus word, after the god of two faces. It means it has two different kind of opposing points of view, or it's sometimes called contronyms, because they're opposed to each other, and there are tons of these. The virtual one is a really good one. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's not usually mentioned when this conversation happens. About virtual now has kind of a more negative minus rather than a plus impression. Thank you.
Hey, Grant.
Hello.
Hey, is your radio program A Way with Words live? And if it's not, how does it work?
Let me ask you, I hear an accent. Where are you originally from?
Kansas.
Where in Kansas?
Southeast.
Where in Southeast Kansas?
He does. Fort Scott.
Okay, Fort Scott. Gotcha. We're on the air there. We're going to hear us. That's all I was looking for. Yeah, so the show isn't live. It presents live. We do it like Car Talk, if you remember Car Talk used to do it, which is because it's on a bunch of times around the country, we can't really do it live. So it might be on 10 a.m. here, but 6 p.m. somewhere else. And so what we have to do is find the advantages in that system, because there are advantages. One is, and I mentioned this a little earlier, but we can then choose callers from all over. You know, if you only come on one time, we're going to get kind of this weird slice of callers. We can choose callers from lots of different backgrounds. You know, we like to make sure that it's not all the same type of person. We can also get callers who might not be able to call us during the regular scheduled broadcast, but have a different time of day that's better to talk to them. And so that's what we do. And so there are a lot of different, and also probably most importantly, we avoid the frequently asked questions, because people, probably at least a third of the questions that people ask are the same question over and over. A lot of it is people complaining about language, which we don't do a lot of on our show. Just because it's, who wants to listen to an hour of bitching and moaning? Nobody does. So we just don't do a lot of that. So that allows us to just be a little more selective and make sure that we kind of represent a good sample, so that we can get the French speaker from Maine, and we can get the person from Southeast Kansas, and we can get the San Diegan, right? We'll get some internationals. Occasionally we might get Australians, or we've had people from India and the Caribbean on the show. And so we get this true kind of nice sample size. It's a real good thing. The other thing I see was like, well, if you're not doing it live, do you really know the questions? I'm like, we do know what they're going to talk to us in advance, but that means that we're on one less source of bad information in the world. So Martha and I can bone up. What new research has been done by my linguistic colleagues? Am I remembering the name of that book correctly that's about this topic? What's that author's name? Is there anything new? I just make sure that I've got the details, because we do not want to put another show on the air or another podcast in the podcast feed that's just spouting nonsense, because there's too much of it. So we're trying to get it right. And so not doing it live means we can get it right.
How do you, over here?
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about the disappearance of languages, given the fact that we're losing them, and probably it's costing a fortune to maintain all of the languages? And I was wondering, there used to be something called Esperanto, and I was wondering how you feel AI may eventually unify the human language.
That's a lot of questions, probably more than we have time for. But I want to address the one thing there that's fine, curious. Like, I don't think the cost of maintaining all these languages is really a thing. I don't really think that's an issue here. More important, I think, is with every language comes culture. And so we're even just simple things like proverbs. When we lose the language, we lose the proverbs. We lose the context. I spend a fair amount of time looking at proverb dictionaries. I'm thinking about doing another book. And I'm astonished how often a proverb is listed. Only the proverb is given with no explanation. I don't care what language it is, And the only way I'm ever going to find out what that proverb really means is to talk to a native speaker of that language. And that's what we're missing when languages go. But it's unstoppable, because the tides of change are just too vast. No one person can do it. That said, as I mentioned earlier, there are people out there with the native communities making dictionaries, making websites, recording the elders, putting this stuff into the permanent record, and however they can get it, so that at least some of it will not be lost. And that preservation, I think, is important work. And if you have a chance to support it, or to observe somebody who's doing the work, by all means help them out, because it's incredible work. Just astonishing what has been lost already, but there's so much that's going, as you mentioned. I think you had a third question? Oh yeah, Esperanto is still active, actually. There's still a huge Esperanto speaking community. It's probably the most successful invented language, although it's possible Klingon is catching up. I think what we're going to see is Apple had just released for its AirPods, its earbuds, it has released an instant translator. And if that's what you're talking about, it's possible, where if both parties have the instant translators, you don't need that middle language. Like you don't need English as your lingua franca, or French or Latin or Esperanto, because you can skip the lingua franca. You can just go straight from language to language. That said, it's still an imperfect system. And one thing to be aware of is that humans don't always seek the most logical or quickest or most efficient route, especially when it comes to language. Sometimes they like the hard way. And that's partly because we like puzzles. We like to solve. And learning another language is a kind of a puzzle to solve. And so there's nothing quite as interesting to a certain class of person as learning a language just because. So that's another way we can preserve these old tongues. Yeah. Do you have a microphone?
Oh,
here you go.
Yeah. Two-parter. I asked my phone for a definition. Where does it come from? Who's giving him the information? Where is the information coming from?
So the question is, if he asks his phone for a definition, where is it coming from? Are you using an Android phone?
Yes.
So it's probably coming from Google Gemini, and Google Gemini is Google's AI product, and it probably scavenged all of its information from mainstream dictionaries. So I wrote a paper a number of years ago about when AI was new, how successful it was at defining words. And what I found was it wasn't very successful if the word wasn't already in a dictionary, but it was very good at stealing information. And I found many cases where it was answering the questions word for word from the dictionary and not giving credit or citing sources.
Also, when I have an operator that I know is from India,
yeah,
can't understand. They're speaking perfect English, but I can't understand them. But if it's an operator that's local and speaking with a slight Spanish accent, I understand them perfectly.
Yeah, there's a something. So who else has this problem understanding foreign certain? But he's got a really good point, which is sometimes you understand people with foreign accents and sometimes you don't. Part of it is accommodation. If you just give it a little bit of time, you'll eventually come around. But this call is too short, really, for your mind to start wrapping around those differences. The example I often bring up is the movie Train Spotting, starring Ewan McGregor, and in it they speak Scots English, and it's really a thick accent. At the beginning of the film, if you don't have subtitles on, you're like, what is happening? What are they? But if you leave the subtitles off, about a half hour later, you're like, wait a second, I passed the boundary of understanding at some point. At some point, it all clicked for me. If you were on the call with them for a half hour, you probably would eventually get to it. Upstairs, downstairs, yeah.
One pet peeve I have is the transitive and intransitive verbs like lie, lay, lane. I don't hear any announcers using it properly
Give it up.
anymore.
It's over.
So it's gone. It's gone, right?
Relax.
Okay, so what I'm saying, it's never going to be the way it was. Is that right?
No, it'll never be. No, and what I usually tell people, when something bothers you about language, it's more about you than it is the people you're speaking.
So give it up.
Give it up.
Hi.
You know what? It's one less bit of anger in your life that you could just push aside and just live a little easier. Yeah. Back here somewhere, sir, in the blue shirt. Yeah.
And this will be, and the one in the back will be the last question.
What? I've got them here for hours. Yes, sir.
So I've noticed that in Midwestern cities like Chicago, their accent is quite different from ours in California. But I go to Toronto, I hear Canadians speak, and they have Canadian raising, but at the same time, their English is actually closer to ours than Midwestern English is. And the other thing too, and that includes in Toronto, for example, they even have they have freeways and they actually put D in front of, like they have the 401, the 407. Yeah. So why is that? Why has it kind of leapfrog? How come?
So you have a linguistics background, I gather.
Well, no, I just like studying languages quite a bit, but
nice.
I always listen to a lot of Canadians, and they keep saying the 401, the 407.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's one of those accidents of history. It's not that there's any great connection between California and that part of Canada. It's just coincidence.
Yeah, but I think their phonetics is also more similar to California than the Midwest.
Well, California has a really broad, unrefined dialect map, so it's all kind of amorphous out here because we haven't been here long enough. So I don't know why we sound like Torontans, but Toronto is a multinational city with a lot of people from all over the world, and so there's what's called leveling. You probably know this term. Yeah. Leveling is when a lot of people who speak different dialects kind of ease off of their own dialect features to kind of grasp onto the major dialect features that they all share. So like in parts of Texas where like Austin, where it's very international, the Texas accent is very diminished. It's leveled. It's more regional. But in very rural places, perhaps El Paso, not quite as rural, but El Paso, besides the heavy influence of Mexican Spanish, they probably have very distinct Southwestern dialect features because there's far less international presence there, except for Mexicans.
Oh yeah, and so I wonder if you can guess this accent. So one time, my programming professor, I asked him where he was from, and then he just said, "Oh, I don't answer those kind of questions. They have nothing to do with C language. My ancestor is ET."
It's Scandinavia, probably.
well, no, but it's it's not Scandinavian, but you can hear the British influence in it. So
where was he from?
Well, So I asked the department head, who said he was from Singapore.
Oh, Singapore, yeah.
But so you can kind of hear the British influence in it, the non-rhotic.
You have a very precise way of speaking. Are you is English your first language?
Yes.
And you speak other languages?
I speak Cantonese, but the reason why I can do that, kind of, even though I'm not Singaporean, the reason why I can kind of do that is because, my family's from Hong Kong. I was born here, but my family's from Hong Kong, and they speak Cantonese over there. And of course, Singapore has a substantial Cantonese population, but in addition to that, they have a lot of people who speak dialects that are Southern Chinese dialects,
like Hokkien.
Yeah, similar phonetics.
Yeah, and so there'll be leveling as well in Singapore.
Yeah, so Singapore has a suspiciously similar accent to a lot of Hong Kong English.
Yeah, and of course, as major world ports and major commerce centers, they probably have a lot of people move back and forth between them.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you for your questions. I really appreciate it. Everyone, thank you for coming out today. And let's hear it for the organizers and thank them for their hard work in making these talks happen.